All right. Hey, welcome to our ecology unit. Um, we are several parts deep now, and we just got done talking about trophic levels and how that kind of determines um, quantities of species at in ecosystems. I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it. Um, for sure, it's going to help regulate the biomass and just how many of those um, consumers that an ecosystem can contain. Okay, you see it a lot of times represented in a pyramid form. We look at here that 10% energy transfer rule is fairly universally accepted as kind of a working number. Producers produce 1,000 kilocalories. Those consumers get 100 of them. Those secondary consumers get 10 of those. And then the tertiary consumers, that last layer, is going to get only one of those original 1,000 calories. So in this particular look, the amount of grass and insects and shrews, maybe, that are needed in order to keep one barn owl alive is immense. And that's why we don't see tons of top predators in ecosystems. Okay, whether it's wolves or bears or lions or tigers, oh my, you don't tend to see a lot because of just the amount of energy that's wasted at each level of the food chain. There's one species that's definitely an exception. That would be us, the human species, as we're going. Um, we seem to be kind of a rule breaker with that. Two reasons. One, we're omnivores. And so even our ancestors that were hunter gatherers survived a long time on um, plants and roots and berries to help supplement the protein in our diets. And two, we have agriculture. Agriculture means that essentially, look at like the state of Iowa, they have ripped up all the ecosystems in the state for the most part and are planting just super high concentrations um, of food and organisms so that we can artificially pump up the amount of and end of the food chain consumers. For example, when we talk about pigs, I believe in the state of Iowa there are 5 pigs for every one person in the state, and so that's just an example of agriculture being able to mass produce calories for us as a species. So here's another look. The same kind of thing, just represented slightly differently. I like to have a bunch of different illustrations of this. So this kind of leads us into our topic for the day. And our topic for the day is going to be populations. So we've been talking around this idea of population sizes and requirements for different things. And so we're gonna write some things down about it. The first one is a biotic potential for populations. So all populations have this biotic potential, so that if conditions were perfect, okay, if there's plenty of food, there's plenty of water, there's plenty of space, if there's no disease, all these things, um, the biotic potential is what species would grow at. We'll see a representation of that. So if there's nothing that's going to slow a population down, it is going to grow, and it will grow at an exponential rate. Okay, so it's going to grow exponentially. Um, I have a picture of that coming up. But you guys should know exponential growth from your math classes. That means that there's going to be x to a certain power or something to the x power. And basically, that boils down to the rate of population increase is proportional to the number of organisms in the population. So we look at rabbits a lot of times. This results in this J-shaped curve there. We look at rabbits a lot of times. Say we look at rabbits because actually cottontails can, believe it or not, they can actually get pregnant on the exact same day that they give birth. So kind of crazy how that species works. But um, let's say you start off with a pair of rabbits, they have 6 offspring. Now all of a sudden you have 8 rabbits, they can all reproduce 6 more offspring. Now you're working with, what is that? 4 pairs times 6. Now you have 24. Now you're multiplying each stage, and pretty soon you have thousands of rabbits after a few generations, if nothing's going to keep them in check. So we look at a graph like this with exponential growth, and you and I know right now that line cannot go up forever. Okay, there is a limit. I'm not, let's say it's rabbits. Let's say this is rabbits living in my backyard. Um, it can get up to 70 rabbits in the last generation there. Um, at some point, there's not going to be enough food for them. Okay, at some point, there's not going to be enough water. It's not going to be enough space. It cannot go up forever. Otherwise, it would go to billions of rabbits living in my backyard, which is just not a possibility. What happens instead is something called a carrying capacity. So when populations they take off at that biotic potential for growth, and then they're going to approach some kind of a maximum value. Okay, they're going to have this leveling off effect that population is going to stabilize at. Okay, um, we call that a carrying capacity, and then limiting factors is whatever it is that's keeping that population in its spot. Maybe it's available resources for housing, like with birds and nesting. Maybe it's amount of fresh water or abundance of prey or predators, etc. But there's going to be something that's going to cause that population to level off, and we're going to look at something that looks a little bit more like this. Okay, so we have exponential unrestricted growth on the left. We know that that's not forever. You can't do that forever. So it's going to start like that. And then at some point, there's going to be some kind of limiting factor on the right that's going to cause that population rate to slow down at a particular point. Okay. I should say that this is what happens under ideal circumstances. It's not always what happens, though. Sometimes we see that population curve goes far above that red dashed line, to the point where organisms actually start to destroy their environment and causing, kind of this runaway effect of there's too many species for the environment, and so they're destroying the environment, thereby reducing the number of species that it can hold. And you're going to see that with the assignment today on carrying capacities there. So there's a couple population graphs for you today, and carrying capacity and exponential growth there would be two of our key takeaways.